He found her in the ruins of a burned monastery, wings shattered like broken glass, bleeding light instead of blood. And in that moment, Brother Matthias, last of the Templars, keeper of oaths older than kingdoms, had to choose between his soul and hers. The year was 1307, and the world was ending for men like Matthias. King Philip had turned on the order. Across France, his brothers were being dragged to torture chambers, their confessions extracted with hot irons and the rack. Matthias had escaped the purge by mere hours, fleeing into the forests of Languedoc with nothing but his sword, his faith, and a secret that had been passed down through 12 generations of Templars. A secret about what they had really been guarding all those years. Not treasure, not the Holy Grail, something far more dangerous. The monastery of Saint Michel had been his destination, a place of refuge, or so he believed. But when he arrived at dawn, he found only smoke and silence. The stones were still warm. Someone had gotten there first. As he picked through the wreckage, searching for survivors, he heard it. A sound that didn't belong in this world. Like crystal bells breaking, like music dying. He found her in what had been the chapel, collapsed beneath a fallen beam that should have crushed her, but somehow hadn't. At first, his mind refused to accept what his eyes were showing him. She was too beautiful, too terrible, too impossible. Her skin gave off a faint luminescence in the smoke-darkened air. Her hair seemed to move with its own wind. And her wings, God forgive him, she had wings, lay twisted at unnatural angles, leaking something that looked like liquid starlight onto the scorched floor. She opened her eyes when he approached, and they were the color of every sunset he'd ever seen reflected in cathedral glass. "Templar," she whispered, and her voice carried harmonics that made his bones ache. "You should not have come." Matthias had been trained for war, for hardship, for death. He had not been trained for this. "What are you?" The question came out as a prayer and an accusation both. "Dying," she said simply. "They found us. After all these centuries, they finally found where we were hiding." She tried to move and gasped, and the sound of her pain was somehow worse than any scream he'd heard on battlefields. "The fallen ones. My kin who chose the other path. They want what I'm carrying. What all of us were carrying. I don't understand." She looked at him with something that might have been pity or might have been desperation. "Your order has guarded the doorway for generations, never knowing what was really on the other side. We were there, Templar. A remnant. The last of those who refused to fall, who chose to stay loyal even after the war in heaven ended. We've been hiding in the spaces between worlds, keeping watch over something your kind should never have discovered. But now..." She coughed, and light spilled from her mouth. "Now they'll take it. Unless you help me." Every lesson Matthias had ever learned screamed at him to walk away. Angels did not bleed. Angels did not need help from men. Angels certainly did not lie dying in burned monasteries asking for aid. This was deception, temptation, a test of faith that he was failing by even listening. But he had seen what happened to his brothers. He had watched good men burn for political convenience, their service dismissed, their oaths made meaningless by a king's greed. He had learned that the world was more corrupt, more complicated, more broken than his young faith had ever imagined. And looking at her now, at the genuine agony in those impossible eyes, he made a choice that damned him. "What do you need?" Relief flooded her face. "Blood," she said. "Life freely given. It's the only thing that can heal what they've done to me. But the act itself, for a mortal to sustain one of us, it's written in your texts as the gravest of heresies. You would be." "I'm already dead," Matthias interrupted. "Every Templar in France is dead, whether the flames have found them yet or not. If I'm to be damned anyway, let it be for something that matters." He drew his knife. "How much?" She told him. He cut deep. The ritual she whispered him through was older than Latin, older than Aramaic, older than any human tongue. His blood mixed with ash from the altar, painted in symbols on her broken wings. And as he worked, she told him the truth. The thing they'd been guarding wasn't a treasure. It was a prison. Inside it, bound by agreements made when humans still lived in caves, was something that had tried to unmake creation itself. The fallen ones wanted it released. They'd been working toward this moment for millennia, slowly corrupting men in power, creating chaos, weakening the seals. The angels who stayed loyal had been the last line of defense, hidden, forgotten, maintaining the watch while humanity argued about theology and built kingdoms on lies. "If I die," she said as his blood restored light to her wings, "there's no one left. The prison opens. And what comes out?" She didn't finish. She didn't have to. Matthias felt his strength fading. He'd given too much. But her wings were starting to knit back together, the broken parts realigning, the light growing stronger. "What's your name?" he asked. It seemed important, somehow, to know the name of the being he was dying to save. "Serial," she answered. "It means command of God. Though I wonder sometimes if he remembers we're still here." "He remembers," Matthias said, surprising himself with the certainty in his voice. "If he didn't, none of this would matter. You wouldn't still be fighting." She looked at him with something new in her eyes. Wonder, maybe. "For a heretic, Templar, you have remarkable faith." "Matthias. My name is Matthias." His vision was going dark at the edges. "And I think maybe faith is supposed to be more complicated than they taught us." Serial caught him as he collapsed. Her wings, nearly healed now, wrapped around them both, and he felt warmth that had nothing to do with earthly fire. "You're not going to die," she said firmly. "I won't allow it. You've bound yourself to me now, whether you meant to or not. And I protect what's mine." She pressed her hand to his chest, and he felt power surge through him, not healing exactly, but transformation. His wounds closed. His strength returned, but changed, tempered with something that felt like starlight in his veins. "What did you do?" he gasped. "Made you harder to kill," she said with a slight smile. "You're going to need it. Because they're coming, Matthias. The fallen ones know what we did here. They'll send everything they have to stop us from reaching the prison. And you," she helped him to his feet. "You just became the only human alive who can help me defend it." Outside, the sun was rising over the Languedoc, painting the smoke-streaked sky in shades of gold and crimson. In the distance, Matthias could hear horses. Soldiers. The king's men or something worse, he couldn't tell. Serial's wings folded against her back, disappearing beneath her torn robes through some trick he couldn't comprehend. To anyone watching, she would look like just another refugee from the monastery's destruction. But Matthias could still see the light beneath her skin, could feel the weight of what he'd done settling onto his shoulders like a mantle made of stars and sin. "So what now?" he asked. She picked up his sword and handed it to him. "Now we commit a greater heresy than anything your order was ever accused of. We trust each other, angel and human, the sacred and the profane, working together not because heaven commands it, but because it's right. Because sometimes faith means choosing love over law, mercy over doctrine." She looked toward the approaching sounds of pursuit. "And we fight like hell to keep the world from ending." Matthias took the sword. His hand was steady. Whatever he'd been before, knight, monk, keeper of mysteries, was gone now, burned away in the same fire that had destroyed the monastery. What stood in the ruins was something new, something the authorities would call abomination, something heaven itself might reject. But he'd seen her pain. He'd heard her truth. He'd made his choice. "Then let them come," he said quietly, and meant it. They left the monastery together as the sun cleared the horizon, walking into a world that would hunt them both, fighting a war that history would never record. Behind them, smoke rose into the morning sky like dark prayers. Ahead, the true battle was just beginning, and Brother Matthias, last of the Templars, keeper of oaths and breaker of sacred law, discovered that damnation felt remarkably like grace.